Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Good evening. Welcome to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Lindsey Davis Stover, and I'm thrilled to have with me tonight Mavis Taintor, who's running for House of Delegates here in Virginia and District 33. Mavis, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Oh, thank you, Lindsey, for having me.
And tell us a little bit, our viewers are from all over Virginia. Tell us what District 33 encompasses.
Well, it's a really interesting district because a big piece of it is in western Loudoun County. And so you think, oh, western Loudoun, it's just blue as can be and everybody's wealthy and all of that. But it's western Loudoun, which is quite rural. And then you go over the mountains west and you have Clark and Frederick counties, which are very rural and quite farming areas. So it's an interesting combination of what is suburban / urban and then very rural and farm-centric.
And what do you love most about your district? It is such a great district. I've spent a lot of time out there. What do you love most about it?
Oh, I love everything. I love everything about it. I'm a transplant from New York, as you probably know, and being in that part of Virginia that is so beautiful, it's just amazing. And so almost every day I am able to get in my car and drive over the mountains into the Shenandoah Valley. And you just have the most beautiful vistas. It's just an incredibly gorgeous part of the world. So it's lovely, and the people are kind and they're generous and polite, and it's really a wonderful place to live.
Just the best, absolutely. Now, you have had incredible experience in business and so many different experiences that have really prepared you not only to win this race, but to be a champion for your district. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about your experience and why you can be a champion for this district?
Sure. I'll jump into my business experience. I actually started life as a teacher, as a Head Start teacher, but various things occurred, and I ended up in New York. And I just decided what I really wanted to do was to be in business. And when I was going through college, women weren't allowed in business schools in the United States, literally not allowed. So there really wasn't a way to get educated, to get ready for business. And then after President Johnson's Great Society, suddenly there were all these legal mechanisms that made women unable to move forward. And I sort of jumped on that wave and went to Citibank. And they were desperate to get good women in. So I walk in the door without really the proper background, and they just took a gamble on me. I was the first woman to go through the management training program in Citibank, and I just had a wonderful career there. And one of the stories I like to tell about my life at Citibank is that early on in my career, before women had really experienced being inside a boardroom, Citibank sent me across the world to Sri Lanka, that little nation in the middle of the Indian Ocean, to fix their corporate bank. And so after 2 years there, I had doubled the profits in the bank. I'd cleaned up all the bad loans, and I'd not only stopped the brain drain that they had been experiencing, but I actually doubled the number of staff in that bank. And so Citibank was really grateful that I'd come in and done that. So they promoted me and brought me back to New York to run a big business in New York.
So you have great experience when it comes to bringing jobs into the Commonwealth and into your district, making sure you look out for small business owners. I know broadband in particular is a big issue that is so important in your district. Tell us a little bit about why you'll be a champion for this district. Why is it, that having you in that seat, people know that you have their back?
Well, I think there are many reasons to do that. I think I have the background, as you say, to be a champion because I've had so many different experiences. I was in graduate school. I taught to earn my PhD. In order to be able to afford it, I had to teach all that time, so I didn't have to pay for my tuition. But what happened to me a number of years ago happened while I was in Virginia, and that was a son of mine who had suffered from mental illness ever since he was a teenager, had started to be addicted to drugs, and so he died from an overdose of heroin. And I could have sat in my living room and just felt sorry for myself. And I know my son wouldn't want me to do that. He would have said, Mom, get up and do something about this. Make this better. And I did. I got up and I decided what I could do to make things better would be to run for office and win in the state legislature, so we could start really focusing on the lack of health care for families in Virginia, particularly in the northern and western part of Virginia where I live, where, because it's rural, there really just is very little health care and very little is going on to help people with addictions. And I know we can do better than that.
We have to.
We have to.
We have to. Well, tell us a little bit about the other issues in your district and even in the Commonwealth that you hear about as you're going door to door right now. I know you're on the doors heavily, you're at events, you're connecting with people in your district. What are the challenges that you're hearing? What keeps people up at night in your district?
Well, people are worried about health care and they're worried about their schools. And to start with healthcare, I hear it every day. I mean, literally, I don't have a conversation where healthcare doesn't come up. Either people are feeling insecure because they're reaching an age, being over 50, where you really have serious trouble getting any kind of health insurance. So if you're over 50 and you live in Virginia, you're really worried about being able to get any kind of insurance. And most people are not lucky enough to have a job that brings health insurance with it. So a certain age group makes it's very difficult to get any kind of health insurance or health care. And then if you're younger, typically you work at a job that may be well paying but no longer gives benefits. Maybe a generation ago they gave benefits, but they don't now. And going out and trying to find a health care policy that works for you is really, really hard. I have a son who has a very good job, and he and his wife and his little daughter pay $1,600 a month for health insurance, and they can't afford to use it because there's a $4,000 deductible.
Wow, on top of their monthly.
So if they go in to see a doctor, they're going to have to pay full fare every single visit until they've used up that $4,000. So they basically don't use it. It's just, and I hear this story, so that's the story in my family, but I hear that same story again every single day at the door.
Well, I know that story is in your family. I know it's in your heart, too. And I've seen firsthand what a champion you already are for that district.
Oh, well, thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about what your efforts are? Why is this seat important, not only to your district, but why is it actually important to the entire Commonwealth? And what are you doing to make sure that we are able to secure this district?
Well, we have the chance to take back the House and the Senate this year as Democrats. So it makes every race in Virginia super important, because we need not only to win a majority, we need a good working majority. So we know we can get the bills we want through the Senate and through the House in Richmond. So that is what makes it very, very a very interesting year to be running, because there is so much at stake. And then when you look around at what has to be done, whether it's teacher pay or whether it's health care or whatever it is, there's just such great need that I feel so strongly when I see what hasn't been done in our district, when I see we haven't taken care of people in the rural areas, that we aren't dealing with this terrible addiction, where we're losing more and more of these young people every single year, and yet nobody seems to want to talk about it. And families are being broken up and destroyed, and we're just not doing what we need to do. Virginia's wealthy, and I know we could take care of these issues and make them so much better.
And you brought up a good point, the rural areas in your district.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about rural areas.
Yes.
I know the rural areas in your district in particular are fired up. The amount of participation and just the advocates out in that district are incredible.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the energy, not only in the suburban part of your district, but most importantly too in the rural part of your district?
Well, yes, particularly in the rural part, because we all know that the suburbs have been really exercised in terms of being able to run people they want to run, and young, wonderful, progressive people have won these offices, et cetera. But when you look at the rural areas, people still have this feeling like, oh, we just can't touch them, because there are no Democrats in rural areas. We'll never be able to send somebody to Richmond from a rural area. Just look at the last 5 years of elections, look at the data. And what they're missing is that there has been this huge sea change going on underneath those numbers. We have 28 precincts in my district, and we did a deep dive on all 28 of them, looking at the changes in Democratic and Republican vote. And what we saw in the majority of them was Republican voting was going down year on year over year, whereas the Democratic vote was going up and up and up. And in the last few years, we have seen double-digit increases in some of the towns, in one of my very rural areas, and in another of the counties, we've seen the beginnings of a lot of, excitement about the Democrats, because new families have started to move in. They are coming from the eastern part of Virginia, and they're used to better health care for the rural areas. They're used to their schools being at a certain standard, and they're finding they're having to go out and be advocates themselves. So they're building a base of involved, interested citizens that want to get things done.
Are you seeing now, too, in some parts of your district that, those that may have voted one party in the past, while right now issues like healthcare that you just mentioned are so important and touching every family in a very unique and personal way? Are you seeing those issues are what driving voters to the polls each year?
Yes, and underneath that, what is so fascinating is there are so many Republicans who now feel somewhat disenfranchised, but they're just emotionally not able to stand up and say, I'm not a Republican anymore. And what they tell me at the door is, we start having this conversation about health care and other things, and they're sounding just like me. We need better health care. We need to pay our teachers more. And I will say, well, I thought you were a Republican. And they go, well, no, really, I'm an independent. And it's made me go back and really look hard at the numbers in my district. And we have a huge number of people who self-identify as independents. And so the key for winning in our district is really getting a large percentage of those independents to vote Democratic this year.
That's great. Tell our viewers quickly where they can go to find out more information about you.
They can go to my website, which is mavisfordelegate.com. And you can look me up just on Google and find me.
Thank you, Mavis. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
So, I just moved in with this family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that. That's disgusting. Oh, poop already. You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
So how was work?
It was 1,300 hours. My math class from 302 was in the trenches. Davy Roth had it the worst. Fractions were coming at him left and right. He just didn't get the damn things. 2 days ago, I tried to teach him what 1/4 of 1/2 was using different sizes of blocks. Yesterday, I tried again by dividing up pizza. Both missions failed.
Oh, no.
But today, I was ready. I created a combat math game where the only way to beat the enemy is to out-fraction them. Davy conquered every last denominator. My game was so successful, the principal is deploying it to math squadrons all over the school. Anywho, how was your day?
Oh, today my boss treated the office to salad wraps.
Salad wraps.
I know.
150 over 90.
180 over 111.
160 over 110. I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a stroke are far from invisible or silent. If you've come off your treatment plan, get back on it, or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Lindsey Davis Stover. And this segment, I'm thrilled to have with me Parisa Dehghani-Tafti, who's running for Commonwealth's attorney for Arlington and the city of Falls Church. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me, Lindsey.
And can you start out, I know this might seem like a very simple question, but for those of our viewers that don't know what the responsibilities of a Commonwealth's attorney are, can you tell us a little bit about the office itself and what it's responsible for?
Sure. The easiest way to conceptualize the office is if you've watched Law and Order. It's the DA, and we call it the Commonwealth's attorney in Virginia, but it's essentially the head prosecutor. And I think of the role as being in four sort of categories. The first is obviously setting policies and priorities for the office. How do we allocate the resources? What crimes do we prioritize? One of the things that I'd like to do is prioritize more serious crimes rather than the smaller, more petty crimes. Another piece of it is management, just making sure the trains run on time and the attorneys are trained and doing their jobs. And there's community engagement. How much do you participate in what is happening in the community? How much public education is there? I think that's important because it actually is a big piece of prevention. Mm-hmm. And finally, there's a morality pulpit, which is often overlooked, and that involves lobbying, but it also involves advocating for criminal justice issues and fairness, but also for advocating for things that will prevent crime. And so those are the four categories that I think of the job.
That's great. It's such an incredibly important job. So thank you for running. Thank you for putting your name on the ballot. I know it's a sacrifice for every candidate that puts himself out there. So I'm interested, what made you decide that you wanted to run? What made you decide to go ahead and do it?
So if you'd asked me exactly 3 years ago if I envisioned myself as the Democratic nominee for anything, including lead prosecutor, mm-hmm. I would have laughed. And but unfortunately, in 2016, I also woke up, like many of my countrymen and women, to a nightmare.
Right.
And every day since then, I've asked myself, what can I do to make my corner of the world better? What can I do to make my county better? What can I do to make the Commonwealth of Virginia better? Mm-hmm. And I realized that the best way that I could do it was to use my skills that I've been using to sort of pluck the babies out of the river, as the parable mm-hmm. goes, to use my skills and walk upstream and try to prevent the systemic mistakes from happening to begin with. Mm-hmm. And my family is amazing. I have the best husband in the world, and my kids are amazing, but ultimately they realize that I'm doing this for them because my children are half black. And when I look at the statistics of arrests and prosecutions in Arlington, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, in the United States, which is the largest jailer in the world, what I realize is I need to make sure that when they go to play dates, when they go to school, when they walk to 7-Eleven, that they are treated, if something bad happens to them, they are treated exactly the same way that everybody else is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And tell us, and the viewers, what your experience is. I know you have incredible experience for this job that will allow you to be a champion in this particular position. Tell the viewers a little bit more about your experience and what led you to this point.
So I am an immigrant, mm-hmm. and I grew up very poor. And we're one of those situations where but for not making a mistake, and sort of as they say, there but for the grace of God. Mm-hmm. I watched my family struggle. I watched my parents have 2 to 3 jobs each, and my parents were so committed to education that my mom would clean my school because we couldn't, so that I could go to private school because we couldn't afford the tuition. And so I grew up with food insecurity. I grew up with all of that. And I decided to I knew that I had to give back somehow, and I struggled to figure out how until I was at UC Berkeley studying comp lit and philosophy, and a friend of mine was convicted of a crime that he didn't commit. And that shook me to the core because it went against everything that I thought about where we were and how the system was supposed to work. And that inspired me to start volunteering for the San Francisco Public Defender's Office as an investigator, but also to go to law school. And while I was in law school, I started working on death penalty cases in the South with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And I became a public defender after that, and most recently I have been the legal director of the Mid-Atlantic Innocence Project, where I helped get innocent people out of prison and ran the litigation department there. So I have been looking at looking at individual cases, building cases of innocence, investigating cases that sometimes are 40 years old, and trying to identify not only the cases but the systemic issues that would help make our system more fair and more accurate.
Well, I've always been struck and in awe of your conviction, and I know you will take that same level of conviction to this position. Tell us a little bit about what your priorities will be once you're elected and you're serving in this position.
My philosophy is simple, and my platform is simple. It's that safety and justice are not opposing values. They are not opposite things, that in fact, that they're intimately intertwined. And to that end, my focus is on justice, because the more justice we have, the more safe we are. And I want to focus on things like eliminating the use of cash bail, because nobody should be sitting in prison, or jail, excuse me, just because they can't afford to pay their way out. Similarly, I think that we should be helping victims raise their voices and heal from the experiences and traumas that they have. And one of the ways to do that is by creating and providing restorative justice programs for victims, so that not only can we help them heal and identify ways to heal, but also the person who did the harm ends up having usually a transformative experience, and it reduces the rate of reoffending, which ultimately makes us safer. I think people should be offered treatment when they're mentally ill or have substance abuse issues or disabilities, rather than being incarcerated. And I think we should focus, I think as I said this earlier, we shouldn't be saddling young people with convictions for simple marijuana possession. And so I'd rather take those resources and focus on things that we haven't spent so much time focusing on, like fraud and like wage theft, so that we can really protect the most vulnerable in society. And of course, last but not least, stop using the death penalty, and because I think that the death penalty has no place in a civilized society.
Well, in part of when you described the position, the last kind of stool that you described, or the four-legged stool of this position, is really a morality type piece to that. And it's, I would assume, involves building relationships both with legislators at the state, probably federal level, but here locally. What will you do in terms of ensuring that that's a priority, so that all Virginians can be treated equally?
Well, one of the things that I want to do is start collecting data, and just to make sure that how are we treating people? Are we treating people differently because of race, even if it's implicit? And I want to make sure that we do it looking backwards to see what we have done and moving forwards, and addressing issues like implicit bias in our society. But it's also things like supporting voting rights for people who are returning citizens. And there was a bill this past session that would have automatically returned voting rights to people who have served their time. And those are the things that the morality pulpit is perfect for, is to make sure that we convey to the legislators and to the community that when people have the right to vote, they actually reoffend less frequently, which means that our community is safer. And to support legislation like that.
Well, and they have a buy-in back into the community,
Exactly.
right? And I think that is what is so important, that
Exactly.
they're able to reintegrate into the community in a meaningful way to them. I mean, that's crucially important, and we've seen the data to prove that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Now, you, I know, are busy on the campaign trail. You're at lots of events. You're meeting a lot of people. You know, I love asking this question because I think it's so important that we always focus on what is important to the people in Virginia, in our district, in our communities. What are you hearing from folks that you're connecting with? What's the challenges that are keeping them up at night? What are families worried about right now?
So I spent a lot of time before I decided to run working on talking to the community and hearing what people had to say. And you know, I heard from parents who are terrified that their kids, you know, lives would be ruined over, you know, just stupid mistakes that kids make.
Sure.
And everything from marijuana to possession to, you know, a stupid prank gone wrong, and or you know, in some cases, sexting when, for example, the photographs weren't shared with anybody else, and that sort of thing. And so I heard from a lot of parents who were terrified that something was going to happen to their kids and that they would lose control of the process. I heard a lot from communities of color and Black communities of the concerns that I had for my own kids. And so, you know, confirming for me that it wasn't just my personal paranoia, but that, you know, there really was a feeling that turned out to be backed by the data that certain areas were, certain people were going through the system more frequently, and that it was largely Black people. And those are the concerns that I heard, and I continue to hear those. So, which is ultimately why I decided to run, because, you know, as I look at the data of what works, you know, this broken windows theory of policing doesn't work. And we know that. And we know that because we've seen crime continue to decrease in jurisdictions where, you know, they have reform prosecutors or police departments that are, you know, interested in reform. And we really see crime decreasing in those communities as well. And we see, you know, the states that are working on decarceration, we see those states, the crime is dropping, and it's dropping faster even in the states that continue to incarcerate at higher and higher rates.
Right. Now tell us real quick where our viewers can go to learn more about you.
So parisaforjustice.com. And they can volunteer, and they can help me not only get elected, but also flip the legislature.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Thanks.
Okay, so we drowned the fire, stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. Already posted it.
I got a crick in my neck, limp in my step, cramping in my muscles every time I try to flex. But I was scared of. Very sad, no more love. All that I could do was remember you. You know I usually stay now, but if you throw me love, I'll throw you some more.
It's a big responsibility.
Oh, it's huge. I know, it's huge.
And the salary.
Oh my god, yes. I mean,
Right?
like, I was about to move in with my parents, and right before, so this saved me.
I really believe in you, you know.
Thank you. It's nice to hear that from someone.
These are cool. Did you, what did you?
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Lindsey Davis Stover. And this segment, we have joining with us Margaret Franklin. Margaret's running for Supervisor in the Woodbridge area of Prince William County. Margaret, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And tell us a little bit about the Woodbridge area, the area you're running to represent.
Sure, yeah, Woodbridge is a great place, situated in Prince William County, as you mentioned, very diverse. The diversity is the strength of Prince William County, really. We have great access to the Potomac River there. We have a lot of great federal employees that live there, and it's really just a great place to raise a family. So happy to be on my way to represent it.
That sounds great. And tell us a little bit, our viewers are from all over Virginia. Tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to decide to run for office.
Sure, yeah, so, from Memphis, Tennessee originally, raised by a single father. Mother passed away when I was 8, so my father raised my sister and I, and, he really taught us the importance of public service. So came to the DC area, went to Howard University for grad school, and kind of stayed involved, and got involved heavily here in Woodbridge, and decided that based upon what I've seen in terms of our power structures, they really didn't understand what was actually going on the ground. So myself as a commuter, as someone who is looking for an affordable place to live, I thought it was important to run for the Board of Supervisors to give a voice to those individuals. And that's why I decided to run.
That's great. I know you just spoke of the commute.
Right.
I read recently that 65% of Prince William County residents actually work outside of the county.
That's right.
So what that translates is into traffic,
That's right?
And congestion. And you talked about your commute. Tell us a little bit about that issue in your district and how important it is to people living in the Woodbridge area.
Sure, yeah, it is absolutely critical. I mean, transportation is hands down the #1 issue in Prince William County. It's take people a long time to get to work in the morning. They have to wake up early. They have to beat the traffic. If they don't have, the money to get an easy pass, you have to sit on 95. So it's a big issue. I experience it every day. I do a number of transportation options, from slugging to taking the bus. When I get into DC, I hop on the metro. So I know what commuting is like. I do it every single day. And so, again, you need someone on the Board of Supervisors that can talk about transportation in a meaningful way and not just talk about it in a more general sense. And you can't just throw money at the issue. You have to actually have a good plan that you can actually fund. So that's what I hope to do.
I mean, you had made an incredibly important point, which was actually knowing how hard it is to commute every single day. And while we talk about sometimes transportation in terms of dollars and cents or plans, it's also a quality of life issue.
Absolutely.
Families are missing that time together in the evenings or in the mornings, being cut off on soccer practice or homework. Can you talk about that piece of it? Because I think that's an important human element sometimes that is left out of the policy discussion.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it is a quality of life issue. I mean, if there's an accident in the HOV lane, then, you can easily spend an hour trying to get home in the evenings or get to work in the mornings. Hands down. If there is, work zone, even at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. at night, it will take you forever to get up and down 95. So it is a quality of life issue. And, people want to spend more time with their family, but they also have to make a living.
Right.
And, unfortunately, a lot of the opportunities are in Washington, D.C. So we need to talk about bringing more opportunities to Prince William County, specifically on the eastern end of the county in the Woodbridge district. So we need more companies and jobs moving to Woodbridge so that our families can stay right here in Woodbridge and people can actually work and play and live in Woodbridge.
That's great. So transportation, creating jobs
Absolutely.
for your district. What are some of the other top priorities that you want to work on when elected?
Sure. Absolutely. Affordable housing is an incredibly important issue. Again, you know, when I talk about affordable housing, I'm actually talking about myself. You know, I am single, make a good living, and I'm still priced out of the market. Right, you know, and I deserve, and a lot of young professionals also deserve to have a chance at home ownership.
Right.
You know, and that is slipping away. You know, I moved to Woodbridge initially because it was one of the most affordable places to live, one of the nicest places, and it's still one of the nicest places, and it's more affordable than maybe some other areas, but it's still hard to really get a price point if you're trying to get into the market. So we need more affordable housing programs, and we need to develop some in Prince William. That's what I hope to do. The other issue is education, obviously. You know, we talk a lot about reducing classroom sizes and getting rid of some of the trailers in our schools. And what that means is not only building new schools, particularly on the eastern end of the county, but we also have to expand and modernize the schools that we already have. So really, I talk about bringing resources to Woodbridge and making sure that we get our fair share.
And you brought up a really important point. A lot of coverage recently has been on the portable buildings because one, there are so many in this area, but two, they also are a safety issue for parents and teachers and students ultimately. Can you talk about, you know, how as a supervisor, whether it's the ability to shape the budget, work with school board members, whatever the case may be, how will you make, you know, school and priority number one when it comes to ensuring the safety of our children?
Yeah, it's a great question. And number one, you have to have a good relationship with your school board.
Right.
That's the key step. I'm happy to be friends with the Woodbridge school board member. Lori Williams has endorsed our race. She's been working with me for years in championing our students. And so it starts at relationships. Number two, you know, we have to look at the budget and see where the funds are going. In Prince William County, 57% of the budget actually goes to our school system. The question is, how are the funds being spent? And I would argue, you know, Prince William, unfortunately, sometimes can be divided between the eastern side and the western side. Western side being a little bit more affluent, but I can tell you we have a lot of great families, a lot of great smart students in the eastern end of the county, and we have to bring those academic funding resources to the Woodbridge district. So incredibly important. I plan to do it by simply looking at the budget and making sure that the eastern end gets our fair share.
That's great. So you will be a champion for your area, it sounds like. And you've got the experience, whether it be your professional experience or your lived experience in terms of your commute every single day. You know what it's going to take to create those changes in Prince William County. And we've seen a lot of exciting things going on in Prince William County. Can you talk a little bit about the energy in the county and the importance of all of the races right now in Prince William County, not just for the county, but for the entire Commonwealth?
Yeah, so a lot is happening in Prince William. Like you said, a lot of energy. I can tell you that, in my opinion, it started in 2017 when we elected all these Democrats throughout Prince William County, from Delegate Hala Ayala, Elizabeth Guzman, Jennifer Carroll Foy. You know, that's where the energy, in my opinion, really began, because overnight it was almost like Prince William County is finally in play. We can finally be representative of those that live there in Prince William. We have more people of color running for office, and it looks like we're on our way to having them actually serve. And so the energy is absolutely there. It never stopped, and we're looking to duplicate it November 5th. And so, you know, we flipped the school board in Prince William in 2015, and then 2017 we did miraculous things in Virginia and Prince William for Richmond, and the last step is 2019 and the Board of Supervisors. So we have a lot on our shoulders, but I think we're going to get it done.
Well, and the energy, I just love being in Prince William County. The energy down there is electric, and it's exciting. And the organization, I think, is so impressive. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing to engage with voters and meet voters where they are?
Sure. Well, the first thing and the most important thing we're doing is just knocking on doors. We're going to every single community. No community is more important than the other. We're going all up and down Route 1 to talk to voters. We have 12 precincts in the Woodbridge district, and I go and I talk to as many people as possible. If I can't be there, I'll make sure that my friends come down from DC. They can knock on doors. My friends in Woodbridge, we get everyone together and we simply just go and spread our message. So that's the first thing we do. The second thing we do is we have to actually talk about issues and bring people to a place where they can feel comfortable to discuss certain issues, right? So whether that be an academic or education forum, whether that be going into the churches, we've done a lot of that, going to the mosque. The mosque is incredibly important in Prince William County. They've been great supporters. And so, we are doing a lot of good work in Prince William. We just have to go to where people are, and that's what we plan to continue to do.
Absolutely. Well, I know you have such a heart for service. And tell us a little bit how you will bring that level of commitment to the people you serve. How will you engage with people and ensure their voices are heard when you're creating policy, hopefully in the future? Yeah, well, I think the first step is making sure that your constituents or your voters understand that you are open, you're an open door. They should be able to come to you and call the office, and be able to get direct results. I think the other thing too is really creating a sense of community. One thing that I talk about is, I always mention the big issues, affordable housing, transportation, all that, but there are several smaller issues that I want to focus on, including strengthening our HOAs and developing community groups or HOAs in areas where they don't exist, particularly in the older parts of Woodbridge. So, creating that sense of community, I think will help do just that. Now, I know we have viewers from your district, but we also have viewers from all over Virginia. Tell our viewers where they can go to learn more about you and your race. Absolutely. They can visit my website at www.margaretforwoodbridge.com and on social media at Margaret for Woodbridge. That sounds great. Well, thank you for running. Thank you. It's such an important time, not just for Prince William County, but for the entire Commonwealth. Yeah, I'm excited. It's such an important time, so thank you for doing it. Thank you. I am thrilled that your name will be on the ballot. I know, again, that you have the heart for service, and I know you will bring that same level of commitment to this position, and will continue that throughout your service. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for the sacrifice and the commitment that you make. And two, I know people can go to your website, but you're continuously on the doors. Absolutely. You're continuously connecting with voters. Yep. They can also see you out in the community. See me out in the community, visit the website, sign up to volunteer. Sounds wonderful. Well, thank you for being with us. Thank you. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
I can't believe we broke Old Man Hennessy's window. Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball. This is really bad. What are we gonna do? We? Go to the door, ask for the ball back. Are you serious? It's my ball, Myrtlebeck. You're so dead. I'd run away. Yeah, to Uruguay. Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry. Let's go. Dad. See you, dude. See ya. You giving me and your well. Nice life. Some friends you are. Hi. Tell him it was an accident, and we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. One in some matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about rooftop life. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Yeah.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Lindsey Davis Stover, and I'm thrilled to have with me in this fourth segment, Laura Jane Cohen, who is running for Fairfax County School Board in the Springfield District. Laura Jane, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Lindsey.
Now, everybody knows Springfield, but tell us a little bit about what your district looks like, because we do have viewers from outside Fairfax County and around the state.
Well, I'm not sure that anyone knows what Springfield. I'm convinced, because if you live in Springfield, you probably are not in the Springfield district. You're probably actually in the Lee district. So for us, we have a little bit of Springfield. We go down almost into Lorton, over all of Clifton, Fairfax Station, Summa Burke, and up to Fairfax, all the way past 66 to Chantilly.
Oh, fantastic. So I want the viewers to learn this evening a little more about you. Tell us about your experience and what has prepared you for this office.
Sure. I was just a mom and a preschool teacher and then a long-term sub in the county. Enjoyed being our neighborhood elementary school's PTA president, and really started to get involved in education advocacy actually after Sandy Hook. And for us, it was learning in our schools that we were an open classroom, and so we didn't have doors. And seeing what happened in Sandy Hook, I thought the only thing that might save our kids might be doors. And so after I called our principal and he said, no, we're part of this complicated renovation cycle and it won't happen, I started calling everyone above him and encouraged all of my fellow parents to do the same thing. And that next fall, when I was teaching second grade in that building and did my first lockdown drill with my own students, I was able to lock that door. And that was a life-changing thing for us.
That's incredible. Tell me why you decided to run for office. It's such an important time. So much is at stake. Tell us how you came to the decision to run for office.
Well, for us as a family, I have 2 kids that are currently FCPS students, and we saw the antics coming from our school board member who advocated for more guns in our schools, told teachers if they wanted to bring their guns that they should bring them. She has worked to ban books. She tried to exclude our LGBTQ staff and students from our non-discrimination policy. And as a family, we just sat down and decided, she ran unopposed last time, and we had no idea if we could win, but we thought we certainly weren't going to let her run unopposed this time.
That's fantastic. So it was a family decision
for you. Oh, absolutely,
you.
Absolutely. Even when I ran for PTA president, we sat down as a family because I said, this is all of us. This is going to be everybody, and it means mom's not home for dinners, and dad's stepping up, and you guys are going to have to load the dishwasher. And so we had the same conversation before we decided to take this leap, because I knew it would impact all of us.
Well, and I know too, as a family making that decision, your kids especially have to know what's at stake. They have to know why their mother is doing this and why it's so important. I think that's an incredible lesson to be able to give your children while you put yourself out there.
They have been amazing. I knew they were amazing kids before this started, but they've knocked doors with us. They go to all kinds of meetings, and they participate. Seeing my daughter participate when we have meet and greets and people ask a question and she will answer.
That's great.
And they've been so generous with their time and their flexibility, very forgiving. So I'm so appreciative.
That's fantastic. And I'm sure it encourages other students and children to become engaged and to get involved. Because I think, in this position in particular, I know you will want to incorporate students in your policy making. Can you talk a little bit about how important that'll be to you as you move forward in this position?
Absolutely. You know, I just the other day, one of my former students came and said, Mrs. Cohen, could I come knock doors with you? And she said, I don't know what all the issues are, but I can tell them that you are my favorite teacher.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And you know, that's the thing to me is I really think we're missing outside of some of the bravado that our school board member puts on is just authentic engagement with our community, with our students in particular, and it comes from spending time in the schools, going to meet with student government associations, you know, being at PTA meetings, being at events that schools have, and really getting to know your students and hearing from them what is really going on. You know, what are you dealing with? I talked to 2 students yesterday from Woodson who are seniors, and I said, good, the bad, the ugly, you know, give it to me. And they said, we are so stressed out. We're so stressed out. And so making sure that you're having that engagement. I'd love for us to start a student advisory committee for the board that's just students so their voices can really be heard and when we're talking about policy making.
That's great. And I know we've touched a little bit on some policies that you want to prioritize. If you don't mind, I'd like to drill down into the issue that you've worked already so heavily on. I mean, the fact that you had such the mindset to be an advocate, to put doors in our classrooms. I mean, this safety issue is one I know is so personal and so you're so passionate about. Can you talk a little bit about how you will prioritize the safety of our children in our classrooms each day?
Absolutely. You know, I think one of the most important things that we can do is make sure that we're giving our kids the kind of mental health support that they need. And we know that before kids ever get to a point of desperation, where they are in such a dark place that they use really poor decision making about the kinds of choices they make personally for themselves and then the kind of choices they make in school. We need to be having that engagement with them, and one of the best ways is if we can, you know, increase the number of counselors that are available, get rid of some of their administrative burdens so that they're able to have really meaningful relationships with kids, so that they have trusted adults that they can come to when things are not going the way that they hope they might be in their life. I think that's incredibly important. I think we also always want to make sure that we're looking at what good research is telling us about how to keep our kids safe. We're learning now that these lockdown drills are causing intense trauma in our kids, that the drills cause the same kind of trauma that actual lockdowns do. So we always want to make sure that we're constantly revising policy, using what information that we're getting. And so some of it's about physical safety, but a lot of it is about that sense of safety, and we've got to get that back for our kids.
Absolutely. And we talked a little bit previously about guns in the classroom. And you had made mention that there were those that were supportive of arming our teachers. Where are you on that issue?
Oh, absolutely. I do not believe in arming our teachers. You know, I think so much as a former teacher, how much time I spend teaching your child how to walk with scissors, that I'm underneath them on the monkey bars to make sure that I return your child home to you in the same condition that you sent your child to me. And I expect the same things for my kids. So my job is absolutely, even though I feel very comfortable around guns, my job is not to be out in the halls assessing what is going on. My job is to be protecting your kids and keeping them safe. So I absolutely do not believe in arming our teachers.
And especially, I mean, you spoke to all of the stresses and the pressures already that our students are under, particularly here in Fairfax County, too. That added safety stress is just something these children shouldn't have to put up with, it seems like.
Absolutely. And to hear all of them say to a person that they think it is very realistic that they may be shot in school, and just to see that fear and to know what it's like to lay on the floor in the dark with 8-year-olds while people are pounding on doors, and the kids know why, and they're afraid. And even when we know it's a drill, you know, I, as an adult who knew what was happening, it was scary. And I cannot even begin to imagine what goes through their minds At such a young age, trying to take all of that in, what's real, what's fake, I think there's a real fear. I think about my daughter saying when she walks in a classroom that the first thing she does is try to figure out sit somewhere that's close to the exit or sit somewhere where she can hide. And that's not okay. We cannot do that to our kids.
Right. We want our kids to be excited to
Right.
learn, right?
Right.
And continue to foster that love
Right.
of learning versus fostering a fear.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing you will definitely be an advocate for. What's two other things that you want to make sure that if elected, these will be your priorities and you will have your constituents back on these issues?
Sure. I mean, stress, again, as you said, plays a big part of it. I think the emphasis that we put on SOL tests, particularly in elementary schools, I'd like to work with our General Assembly and get rid of some of those elementary school SOLs. They have shown us that they're not a good predictor of success. And they're not a good predictor, truthfully, of your academic understanding and certainly not of your teacher's performance. They're a good predictor of how you do on a test. So I'd like to work to change those. We need to increase our teacher and staff pay so that you can afford to live in the communities that you work in. And our staff in particular, I mean, our IAs that we have in kindergarten and in special ed in particular, we rely on them as co-teachers. They make less than a manager trainee at Domino's. So we have got to do a better job to make sure that we increase their salaries.
So teacher pay and administrative pay in particular will be a top priority for you when elected.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I know I have a first and third grade daughter that would love to see the changes to SOLs that you've talked about. It's a stress. It is a really traumatic time sometimes for essentially babies, that we're putting through. So.
Absolutely, and teachers too. It means that they can't pace the curriculum in a way that I think makes sense. We talk about monarchs and milkweed in May because it's not on the SOLs, not at the beginning of the year right now when the caterpillars are growing. And so I think the idea too that their performance is somehow tied to how their students do on an SOL as an evaluation, it doesn't make any sense.
So real quick, tell us what's at stake in this election.
Well, for us, I think that we have an opportunity in Fairfax County to be a real bubble against what's happening just across the Potomac. We have an opportunity to keep our kids safe and make them feel successful and respected and secure and show them that kindness really does matter and show them that they deserve a school board member who will set that example, who behaves in a way that we expect our kids to be able to look up to.
Good. And for our viewers, tell them where they can go to find out more about you.
Sure. It's laurajanecohen.com, and on Facebook it's at LJ for FCPS.
Great. Thank you, Laura Jane, for being with us tonight.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. I appreciate it.
And thanks to all of you for joining us. We are happy to have this show and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye now.